Emisión.net.
Hello again and welcome to Letter from England, broadcasting for AC Press. The main talk at the recent annual general meeting of the Spanish Evangelical Alliance was given by Manuel Suarez, a medical doctor and active local politician, about the involvement of evangelicals in politics under the title of Evangelical Participation in Public Life. Suarez claims the main political parties in Spain do not have a clear goal, but vaguely aim to keep the majority of the electorate happy simply by talking about what they call the state of well-being. This is why the manifestos of the different parties are less and less distinguishable from each other, he says. Suarez is vice chairman of a new grouping within the Alliance, Participation in Public Life, and his talk launched the new group, which is led by Alliance General Secretary Jaume Llenas. For a long time, evangelicals have opted out of the political process in Spain, not considering involvement worthwhile or even considering it to be a corrupting influence. But Suarez is now calling them to action. So how should evangelicals act in politics? Suarez believes Christians should think back to how they should have acted when the transition to democracy was made in the late 1970s. He asks, should we feel inhibited again and be silent as we were then? This is not just theoretical, as Suarez, himself active in the political arena, says. We are in the midst of a transition, but a more subtle one, a change in society's values, a change which does not just depend upon the label of the government, and which leads to a severe loss of democracy. Speaking from 1 Timothy 2, where Paul enjoins Timothy, and by extension us, to pray for and get involved in creating a fairer society, and of course recognizing that a key role is to be played by political leaders in this. He showed that God is not indifferent to the lack of social harmony and respect for human dignity, often exacerbated by poor political leadership. Paul knows as well as anyone that political power is key to achieving the goals in society for which God desires. Suarez commented on this. In the transition, Spain caught democracy by osmosis, but lacked the earlier bedding down of Protestant values, which opened up the path of democracy. It freed itself from national Catholicism, but not from its values of intolerance, which persist in contemporary politics. And now when the government proclaims its support for tolerance, it does so through the denial of values. He says that Spain has gone from Catholic dogmatism to lay dogmatism, and along the way has not shed intolerance. Meanwhile, our democracy lacks depth. This is a very interesting comment. As we all know, modern democracy owes its roots, although in part perhaps to ancient Greece, principally to the Protestant Reformation and many of the ideas which came from that regarding the liberty of the individual and the responsibility of each individual to work for a fairer and more just society. It's very interesting that Suarez should say that Catholic Spain lacks the Protestant values necessary for a stable and strong democracy. In some of the traditionally Protestant countries of Northern Europe, where we're seeing exactly the same erosion of moral and Christian values, that also democracy is being weakened by governments who, as he says exactly, are less and less distinguishable from one another in their policies, perhaps less concerned with content and substance, and more concerned with style and image. Whereas God calls Christians to work hard, to get involved in society, and to try and promote the kind of values that God wishes to see, not just in his people, but in nations as a whole. It will be interesting to see in the coming years what this new alliance grouping here in Spain can achieve, and to see whether more Christians will take up the political mantle and work for good in society. Well, thank you again for listening to Letter from England, broadcasting on emission.net for AC Press under the auspices of the Spanish Evangelical Alliance. Goodbye for now.
Emisión.net